Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, and happy December, happy mid-December. I know that this can be a very full and busy month for so many people. So today I wanted to just create a short, somewhat light episode for you so as to not take up too much bandwidth. And it's a fun topic today. We are going to talk about developing your sensitivity for a better marriage. Now, I know many of you have probably heard or thought that suppressing your sensitivity or overcoming your sensitivity was actually the thing that's going to make life and marriage better. Like if only you were just less sensitive, right? But I'm here to tell you that the opposite is true, that sensitivity carries so many gifts, and actually leaning into developing those gifts is part of the recipe for having an amazing marriage as a sensitive person. So you ready to talk about that? Let's do it. But before we do, I want to ask you for a quick favor, which is to rate and review this podcast if you've been enjoying it. Ratings and reviews are like gold in the podcast world. They actually get the podcast out in front of more people so that it can reach more ears, reach more sensitive hearts, change more marriages. So please take just a moment or three, especially if you're going to go over and do so on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to me, and it just touches me to hear from you. That's like one of the only ways I get to hear directly from my listeners is by reading your reviews. So thank you so much in advance, and thank you so much to those of you who have already done so. It just warms my heart and floods me with gratitude when I read those. So thank you. All right, so developing your sensitivity instead of overcoming it or suppressing it may actually be one of the best things you can do for your marriage. Now, there are plenty of ways this is true. And my sense is that more and more the research is showing the gift that sensitivity actually is and how it truly is a really beneficial thing for our own individual lives, our marriages, and even our species, of course, as a whole. But today, I mostly just want to discuss one of the ways developing your sensitivity is going to be really beneficial for you. And I'm going to start off just by illustrating it with some examples. So I've been known to finish my husband's sentence for him correctly, mind you, not like when someone intervenes and has no idea what you're trying to say and says something totally different than you meant to say. My husband actually does that. Can be really annoying, yeah. But I've been known to finish my husband's sentence for him correctly when he's having trouble figuring out what he means to say. Now, again, I don't always recommend this. I don't know that this is always actually the best approach. But when someone's stumbling and really, like, you know what they're going to say, that actually can be okay to be like, oh, is this what you're trying to say? Right? That can make someone feel really heard, known, and seen. So, yeah. Another example, I'm sure I heard this happen many times, but the time that stands out is I one time grabbed a stuffed animal downstairs and brought it up to my son when he was getting ready for bed. And he said to me instantly, "Yay, I was wanting Raccoony." One of my clients, as another example, intentionally puts the dishes away before her husband gets home, even though she could care less about the dishes being put away. But she does it because she knows it brings him a lot of peace to have that done. Another client, her also highly sensitive partner, knew that Valentine's Day was more important to her than she was letting on. And so he scheduled a special weekend for her around that holiday. Another client of mine knew that her husband tended to be quite ornery at the end of the workday, or a little ornery. So she learned to give him a big welcome hug and then let him be for a while until he relaxed and was able to come forward more on his own when she knew it would be more fun to talk with him and be with him. So, what do you sense that all of these examples have in common? Really knowing and being tuned in to our person, this other being in our lives that we care about, right? Being tuned in, knowing them, being attuned to their innermost world, what they love, what they care about. So this is one of the things that we can be incredibly good at as sensitive people. And it's actually really important in our marriages to be good at this. So to break it down a little bit more specifically, it can look like noticing and being aware of what our spouse likes and doesn't like, where their thoughts tend to take them, what fascinates him and what stresses him out and what makes him mad and what thrills him, when he is likely to light up and when he's more likely to shrink away or not want to talk anymore, like what his patterns are. Right? Like my husband doesn't love to bring up difficult topics, for example. What his first typical reaction is when he feels hurt or when he's unhappy with something you said or something that happened in the world. And what it will take for him to feel better, like a run or maybe some space or a night out with some friends. And what times of day he's more open for connecting, and which times of day, for example, he might be more closed off or, again, needing some space. So these are just some places that we could be aware of. We can know, we can all kind of know our partner so much that we're pretty clear on this stuff. When we're aware of these types of things, it really is beneficial in so many ways. For one, it helps us understand what he's going through when he's not in the best place, so it doesn't bother us so much. It also allows us to show up with him with more understanding, and say just the right thing or do just the right gesture that helps him feel supported and respected. And that will feel good to your partner and will definitely feel good to you too, like sensing yourself as this really attuned partner. So innately, this is a skill of mine as well. And I've also spent a fair amount of time purposefully getting to know my husband's inner world even more, even when he isn't explicitly telling me all about it, but just through those observation skills that I have. And I truly credit this with being one of the number one reasons he's told me many, many times some version of these words. He said, "With you, I feel so cared for and seen and loved for who I am. I feel like you really get me. I'm actually in awe of how in tune we can feel." That's a direct quote. And again, my husband said that to me in various ways over the years. And it melts my heart when I hear that. I mean, we all want that, right? We all want to feel like our partner feels like that towards us. And we all want to be that kind of great partner that allows our partner to feel like that. And the good news is it really starts to happen when we really know our partner. In other words, when we become sensitive to, i.e. aware of and responsive to who he is. Now, again, because you're a highly sensitive person, you probably already have a knack for this. You probably already know so much of your partner, right? Because innately, we as sensitive people do pick up on subtleties, the moods of others. Like we can read a room pretty well. We're pretty aware just instinctively of what's going on around us and inside of those that we care about. As an HSP, you were just born good at this. You actually have incredible observation or sensitive observation skills. And part of the science behind this is you literally have more sensitive, stronger mirror neurons in your body brain, which means that you sense and notice what's happening for the other person, another person near you, really well. Even sort of below the level of your awareness, this is always happening. This is going on. You're sensing, attuning, noticing what's going on for other people, and especially those people who are near you a lot and who you care about deeply. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I've certainly heard this and felt like this at moments myself, that you might even know your partner in some way better than they know themselves. Now, I always advise, if you have that sense, to be careful about that, because it can, in a way, go to our heads a little bit and make us think we know more about them than they do, like all the time. And that can actually lead to like gaslighting them and disbelieving them and not listening and thinking we're right and thinking, actually making mistakes about what's true for them. Because the truth is, they really do know themselves better than we can, but we might pick up on things that they're not fully picking up on about themselves. Like we might have these beautiful intuitive hits about what's going on because this is our gift. This is one of our gifts as HSPs. One other piece here is that as women, not just HSP women, but women in general, we also come into the world geared more towards connection. And so we're quite aware of others in that sense. And add in high sensitivity, and woohoo, you really are a know your partner machine. So this is really an innate strength of yours. It's really a superpower and can be an amazing gift for your relationship. That said, many of us could actually get better at this intentionally. And there's this thing that happens that can get really in the way of being really good at this. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But you could really use this superpower of your sensitivity, your subtle attunement to your partner, to not just know him even better, but also to be even more sensitive in the kind of lovingly responsive to him way. If you have been listening to the podcast for a while or reading my emails, you'll know that I like to talk about the definition of sensitivity. One of the definitions is responsive to, compassionate towards. Right? Like I was being very sensitive to him. I was being very caring and like gentle and responsive to him. Right? I think that's a beautiful thing. So we can actually use our gift of beautiful observation and knowing our partner to respond in loving ways that really deepen the connection and the intimacy and the warmth and the mutual supportiveness and sort of team spirit in a relationship. Some of what this looks like some of knowing him better and being lovingly responsive to him, is really continuing to get to know him as he evolves in an ongoing way. And right, because we're changing all the time, despite what some people say. So being kind of open to continuing to perceive him in new ways and meeting what you know about him and what you continue to discover about him with openness, with softness and flexibility versus rigidity, and with interest instead of rejection or judgment or condemnation. So to be a little bit more like tangible and specific here, a great place to start is simply by observing your partner over the coming days and just notice how you can get a sense of his mood or even what's on his mind just by observing his face, his body language, his tone. And be careful not to turn your observations into personal attacks against yourself or making it mean like bad things or worst case scenarios. We're pretty good at that as HSPs. So instead, can you just observe and notice and allow? Another thing you can do is ask great questions and respond with interest or respond lovingly and with curiosity versus taking offense to things he says or, again, making them mean, like twisting the meaning. but kind of be open and meet what he shares with interest to encourage more opening up. I actually created a whole podcast episode called Holding Space for Your Spouse. That's a really good one for like helping there be this lovely space for your partner to share with you. And it's a podcast for your partner to listen to too, because I want both of you to be really good at holding space and ultimately encourage more opening up and sharing and, deep connection that you all want so much. And the next piece is actually sort of a repetition of what I just said, but be open and curious about why your partner is saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing. And be careful not to react too strongly when they do things that you don't like. So I want you to notice how there's a theme here. And what I've just said is really trying to get at something specific, which is to really get to know your spouse's innermost world. You kind of need to take yourself out of the equation for moments of time, right? To stop making meaning or weaving stories about what this or that thing about him means about you or your relationship. Really, you need to start observing from a neutral place. And I'm talking about this because there's this tendency in our intimate relationships to kind of read into everything or like turn things into being about ourselves or being a problem for the future of our relationship. Like one example that comes to mind as I speak about this that I actually shared in a recent podcast episode with Todd about people pleasing. One of my clients shared about how, she had this experience with her husband where he would be in charge of the TV remote when they watch TV. And instead of just noticing that and taking it at face value, she put meaning on it. And that meaning was, he's forcing me to watch what he wants to watch. Now, we can put all sorts of meaning on things, right? Like someone else might have made it mean something totally different. I might have made it mean, he doesn't care about me at all. He only likes what he likes. But this is looking through our personalized filter that I've talked a lot about on the podcast, that's made up of our biases and our past experiences and how we interpreted them and our patterns and, our negativity bias and our lizard brain. And that really distorts what's going on and usually creates a lot more pain than there needs to be. So in this example, what we could do to know our partner best and be attuned to our partner is to just notice, he picks up the remote when we're in the room together. He changes the channels. That's his pattern. And then you could get curious about it, right? Like, what's going on there that he's saying or doing that? You could ask a great question about it. Like, I notice you're usually in charge of the remote. Is that intentional? Is that something that matters to you to be in charge? I'm really just making some things up here, but my point is, instead of deciding it's this bad thing and that he's selfish or doesn't care about you or he's forcing you to do what he wants and not what you want, just notice from a neutral place. When you can do that, you really will be freed up to make use of what you're learning to be true about him. Maybe you'll actually learn that he doesn't care that much, that it's just a habit, or that you never have asked to take charge, so he just does it because someone needs to. But what I have found is that knowing my husband in this way helps me really respond so much better and not take his quirks and flaws and any quote unquote misbehavior personally, and certainly not make it mean something icky about the relationship or painful. And as I observe from a more neutral place, it lets me know sometimes, almost like psychically, when he needs love or space or to hear certain words. It really helps me be more lovingly responsive. And when I'm lovingly responsive to him, and I want to be, this is not something you need to be all the time. So be clear on that. I'm not saying you always need to be lovingly responsive to have a great relationship. I'm saying at moments it's really beautiful to be lovingly responsive to your spouse. And it can feel really amazing and wonderful and make you feel really good about yourself, because it feels amazing to love and respond lovingly to someone you do love. Now, as I'm saying all of this, it's made me think I want to add that, yes, it's beautiful to observe from a neutral place instead of from the lizard brain smoke screen. But it can also be even better if you can connect to the love that is there, right? And almost look through the rosy colored glasses or the love infused glasses, not to paint a fake rosy picture, but to see from your heart. And it reminds me, there's a podcast called Assume Positive Intent. It's a little bit about what I'm talking about here. In any case, this ability to respond and know and be deeply attuned to our partner is one of the things that allows us to really build the kind of relationship with our partner that really feels so harmonious and in sync, so much so that others think we just got incredibly lucky. And sometimes it does feel like luck to have such a wonderful relationship in my life, but I know the truth. It doesn't come from the luck of having met the perfect guy. I don't even think that's a thing. It comes from the luck of having been born sensitive and the dedication to developing the skills that it takes to have a healthy, loving, wonderful marriage, which any sensitive person can do, including you, of course. So that's the main way today I wanted to talk about developing your sensitivity for a better marriage. But you can also develop your sensitivity for that same reason in terms of being lovingly, caringly responsive to yourself. So not just to know yourself better, but to really respond with deep, loving care to yourself. I actually think this is one of the places that we're actually innately good at for others, but not so good at for ourselves as sensitive people. So that's why the 4th episode of this podcast was called Being Sensitive to Your Sensitive Self. So that's definitely a huge place to develop your sensitivity as a sensitive person. And one other area is self-awareness in general and self-reflection. We are already quite self-aware generally as HSPs, and we tend to reflect deeply, do a lot of self-reflection. But when you develop it more, you really get good at self-awareness or awareness of your own thoughts and your own feelings, it really changes your life incredibly. That is actually one of the primary reasons coaching is so magic, because it helps you become an incredible self-observer of your own thoughts, of your own feelings. I call it deep sensitive awareness. And from there, you can learn how to work with your thoughts and your feelings to absolutely change everything for the so much better in your relationship and in your life. We could add into that as well, not just your thoughts and your feelings, but deep sensitive awareness of your nervous system is also an amazing starting place for incredible transformation in your life and in your marriage. All right, so all of that said, yes, your sensitivity is an amazing gift, and when you develop it instead of trying to suppress it, and you learn to work skillfully with the parts that might be a little bit more challenging, you are cut out for the best relationship in the world and the most happiness in love. And so is your lucky partner. Before you go, I want to let you know that I only have a few spots left in my very special time-limited offer, A Better Marriage in 1 Month, where you're going to get 3 one-to-one coaching sessions with me where we can work on whatever you most think you want to shift and change in your marriage so you can have more warmth and security and connection and love with your spouse. There's a lot to learn about this little program, but an important thing to know is that it's only for new one-to-one clients. I'm going to put the description in the show notes, and if you're interested in it, I recommend acting fast and scooping this amazing opportunity up. It's actually 40% off of normal coaching prices, so it's kind of a crazy deal and a really special opportunity to really get to coach with me for a shorter, very focused, very personalized time together. So check out the link in the show notes or just reach out to me. All right, my dears, have a wonderful holiday season, and I will talk to you soon. Be oh so well.